Hello there and welcome, fellow cosmic travelers and seekers of the higher spiritual psychic path. It's Psychic Cynthia here, spiritual psychic Cynthia Killian. And I wanted to let you know that Venus is about to go retrograde on this Saturday. I believe that is going to be the 22nd, July 22nd, 2023. I don't have my calendar in front of me, and it's very humid and hot where I'm filming. But you know me, I love to film outside. So I believe that's correct. And I do have a Virgo rising, so I can be quite precise sometimes. Anyway, enough of that astro nerdness. Yes, what does that mean for us? Well, this is just a quickie video, and I'll try to do a couple more if I can in the next few weeks if I'm not too hot or too busy. But you know, this is Venus, not Mercury. I just want to clarify that. And Venus doesn't go retrograde very often. It's basically about every year and a half, and it's going to be for 6 weeks. Okay, so you know, again, I don't have those dates all in front of me, but you can count 6 weeks from the 22nd. Okay, and I'll do some more videos breaking it all down precisely for those of you who want that. But I want you to get the feel, the flavor that Venus is our beauty principle. You know, it's that part of us that, you know, wants to beautify ourselves, our fashion, our wardrobe, and also our homes. We want to decorate, and we, you know, some people think that this is small and trite, but it isn't, because it can make such a huge difference in our life. Because Venus, you know, it's that beauty principle, and we all respond to beauty. And whether that's, you know, beauty in our decor, in our living space, beauty in a beautiful person or a handsome person, or the beauty of a song or beautiful music. So Venus, you know, it brings the juice into life in a way that you know, it eases friction too. That's another part of its energies. Just when it's in normal movement, it is a peacemaker, a harmonizer, it is a negotiator. But when Venus goes retrograde, oh, did I mention it rules our relationships too, the way we relate to each other, what we value. It's our values, our self-esteem, and our self-worth. So when Venus goes retrograde, we might experience some tension in these areas. It's a good time to review in these areas. It's a good time to review our relationships. It's a good time to you know, maybe take a rest from making too much change in these areas if you can. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. Let me talk about it in just a second. But overall, generally, you know, instead of pushing so hard to make change in our wardrobe, like I've been doing a lot of that this year, just cleaning out and clearing out, you know, making decisions in that area, or making decisions in relationships. You know, it might be a better time to take more of a yin approach to that, and to be reflective and to listen. Now, this Venus retrograde, it can bring up conflicts. It can intensify and escalate, you know, any conflicts that are already there in relationships. Because normally when it's not retrograde, Venus is this social lubricant, and it smooths things over. It's a harmonizer. You know, it's the harmonizing principle. It brings us together towards understanding and mutual benefit. But when it goes retrograde, you know, that puts strain on us, and it can make it harder to see the mutual benefit. You know, what is the purpose of agreeing? Why work in harmony or cooperation? But remember that we are stronger when we work in harmony and cooperation with others. So I think the thing to do, and listen, you may already be feeling some of the relationship scratchiness. Lord knows I am. I mean, if you're in a committed relationship especially, or you have close friendships, or you live with people, don't be a bit surprised if people are a little bit crankier, especially if they are Venusian types. Like me and my husband are both Venusian types, I would say. What I mean by that is the principle of Venus operates strongly through us in one way or the other. He is a professional artist, and I have an artist soul, you know, in the way I express and do things, and we're both musicians. So anyway, if you have any of those qualities, you know, if you're into music or poetry, or expressing yourself in a beautiful way or in a fashionable way, you know, if you are a counselor or a therapist that helps people come together, yeah, there's a lot of different Venus types, but many people could be affected by this. I think that it's not always as potent for some people, or it's not as obviously potent. It's very potent transit, okay? But some people don't see it or feel it as consciously as they do the Mercury retrogrades, because we're a very linear society, at least here in America, okay? Now, if you're watching from Bali, it's different because, you know, you live in a very artistic-based society, but America is very mercurial. We're very mercurial. We're driven, well, kind of Saturnian too. That's another discussion, but we have a lot of logical thought processes. But yeah, there's also a lot of us here that are into pleasure, and Venus is one of the pleasure principle signs. So, you know, this could be a good time, actually, not to go overboard, but to think about your self-care and really be nurturing on that. Don't be excessive, but to put some time and energy into that. And yeah, in relationships that might not be going as smoothly, listen, this is a time for listening, if you can, to others in your life, hearing what they're really saying, because that can help you negotiate the boundaries of the relationship. Did I say that word, boundaries? Yeah, it might be a time where boundaries get a little confusing, especially if you're already confused on that. But listening can be a good first step. And for some of you, speaking your truth, but you can negotiate and speak from a position of power if you've taken the time to listen first. Does that make sense? Okay? Because, you know, one of the things I have said in the past about Venus retrograde, and I think it is still true, that Venus retrograde can bring out your inner bitch. Okay? I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word. I hope I don't get censored here on whatever platform you're watching this. But yes, it can definitely bring out, you know, your inner crank, let's say. It can bring out the crabbiest, most, you know what I mean. The words are failing me because it's hot. But I think you know what I mean. So don't be surprised at all. And you know, maybe sometimes you need to speak up and stand up. And yeah, you need to do that sometimes. We shouldn't be doormats, okay? But when Venus is in retrograde, there might be a tendency to become the opposite of a doormat and to step on others. And I would just invite you to think about the possible long-term consequences of that. Have you ever said or done something in a relationship or even a casual connection, you know, that you did without thinking? And maybe you thought you were really right in that moment, and maybe you were really right, let's say. It was really bluntly honest or true, but then that came back to haunt you. That perhaps devastated or damaged the relationship in ways that you could not repair later. Okay? Have you had that experience? I have. And I think that anybody who's been on, you know, any kind of relationship path, including, you know, close friendships or living with somebody, you know what that's like. So these kinds of things are more likely to happen for the next 6 weeks. It doesn't mean they have to happen, okay? And that's why I make these videos and write my newsletter. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the Cosmic Newsletter, get on the list. It's free. I don't even charge for this stuff because some things in life are so good you can't put a price on them. Okay? So, yes. Understand that, you know, you to some extent you get to choose the experience you have during these retrogrades. I mean, I always say you can't choose the cosmic weather. It's just like if it's going to rain and you step outside your house and it's raining, yeah, you're going to have to deal with that rain. And just telling yourself it's not raining is not good. It's not constructive. It's, you know, if you just step outside your house when there's a thunderstorm going on, and yeah, you will get soaked if you don't prepare yourself. So the reason I do these forecasts, you know, this is when the storms are coming, so to speak. You can know when the weather is going to be a little choppy, and with Venus, the social relationships will be choppy. You may also start to feel a little down on yourself or low on your talents, but this can be a good time for recommitting to pursuing your talents. And maybe, you know, with your work too, like the work you do for money, okay, the actual work, not just your profession. And by the way, I'm getting ready to teach a class relating to your higher life purpose, your work, your profession, all of that, and astrology. So I'll let you know more about that if you're on the newsletter list or you follow me on Facebook, or maybe I'll put a link here. I may not remember. But yes, this is about Venus might trigger and activate your thoughts about your work and your enjoyment and pleasure around that. You know, it's important that we enjoy and have some kind of pleasure around our work, some kind of compensation, whether that's the monetary compensation, and Venus does care very much about that, especially in its Taurus rulership of Taurus. So all of you Tauruses out there, you will be feeling the currents of this shift because you are Venus ruled, as well as you Libras. And the Libra part of all of this, by the way, we all have all 12 signs somewhere. It's just they're not all strong. But the Libra cares about the social currency. So yeah, with your job, you know, you want it to either provide you, you know, a good income, or you want it to provide you social connections that are meaningful. You know, you want to work around people that you enjoy, or maybe there's something else too, maybe other opportunities the job gives you. But sometimes we do get down on our finances during this time. Sometimes things are actually bad, and sometimes things just seem bad when we're in Venus retrograde. So ask yourself, if you're down on your job or your finances, I mean, you know, are things really as bad as you are thinking they are? Check in with your intuition. Always trust that, okay? Check in with that. And generally, you know, the sort of general ancient advice on these Venus retrogrades is to, you know, not make any major changes in, you know, your major financial moves, like anything that you can undo during the time of Venus, because the information may not be available during a Venus retrograde. Also, you know, the advice is to not make, you know, major relationship changes, because again, the information may not all be there. You may not, you know, you might be kind of spiked right now emotionally or not seeing things clearly. And it's also generally not a good time to make major cosmetic changes, you know, like to dye your hair. Well, that could wash out, I suppose, but what if it went wrong, the process, or to get a tattoo, that's very long lasting. So I would never do that during a Venus retrograde if it were me. Now, are there exceptions? I mentioned earlier the exceptions, and there are always exceptions to these guidelines. And the thing to think about is if it's a major move you've been thinking about for a while. So if you know, like you've been thinking about leaving a relationship, I mean, seriously, you've seriously been planning, you have a plan in place, and you've been thinking about that for a long time, the Venus retrograde period could actually be ideal. But if the idea just comes up into your mind now, that's questionable. Okay, you might want to sit with it, feel into it, start making plans, but not act until after the retrograde. I mean, of course, it's your life. Ultimately, you have to deal with the decisions. So feel into it. Don't just go off of you're worked up emotionally. And I've observed that when Venus is in retrograde, a lot of those core issues around, you know, like inner child issues around not feeling valued or appreciated by others, not valuing ourselves, and possibly, again, going back to childhood, if we didn't feel appreciated and we still have some of that is unhealed, that can come up during the Venus retrograde, and that's where that, you know, component I talked about earlier that rhymes with witch, okay, put a B on it. We can start to act like divas, you know, like out of control divas. And by the way, not just women, men too, definitely men too. Although it might be for a man, it's the women in your life, and it might be for the women, it's the men in your life, okay? I think it can go both ways. But yeah, it can bring out that inner diva, and not in a good way, okay? I mean, I take the diva, you know, like all archetypes, the diva has, you know, positive, negative, constructive, and deconstructive. So, yeah, I don't know, maybe there's a time to throw down some diva-ness. And then maybe that's another time that's not a good idea. And, you know, I'm going to just leave you with that thought and let you meditate on that and decide when that is appropriate and when it isn't. It probably, here's the thing, if everybody's acting like, you know, out of control divas during Venus retrograde and you want to do it too, what is that going to accomplish? I mean, call me a Capricorn, maybe I'm being too practical here, but somebody's got to have the real class. You know what I mean? Alrighty, food for thought. So Happy Venus retrograde. Let's try to make it a good one. Let's do the best we can, right? Let's review and reflect on our relationships, our fashion, our look, our money, our jobs, but let's not do anything unwise. Okay. Until next time, I'm Psychic Cynthia, wishing you much cosmic light and bright blessings.